Hello everyone! Last week we assembled a Panzer III modification E model. This week, naturally, we will be painting it. Since I ran out of black primer, I had to use this dark brown one. But if I were using the chipping method with hairspray, this dark brown paint would have served perfectly as the rust color. But today I won't be using that method. So this dark brown primer will simply serve as primer. Although it's hot as hell here, I'm using a hair dryer to speed up the drying of the model. As I have a little time, I need to paint the model quickly before the power goes out again. The model is primed, and now I'm using three colors: German yellow, golden yellow and flash base from the Panzer XS series to apply the base color to this tank. This color were chosen because the next diorama will depict event in Africa. I need to apply the base color very quickly, because it's hot as hell in my apartment and the paint dries before it even reaches the model. Nevertheless, it must be done very carefully, because if I overdo it, I can ruin the model. Although, I'm already damaging it a lot by using poor quality glue. But never mind, these are decorations that are not so important. Much more important is to say that the model is painted. And now I need to mix a lighter color to apply highlights to upper parts of the tank. Initially, this paint is not intended for use with airbrush and needs to be mixed thoroughly. I mix the paint with water and use a pipette to make the color uniform. But after using the pipette to make the color uniform, you will end up with a lot of bubbles. To remove these bubbles, you can use a lighter, but you need to do this very carefully, because the paint can catch fire. This didn't happen to me, and now I apply neat spots to the protruding parts of the tank. The idea is that the tank drives under the scorching sun, and the paint, quite naturally, will fade and have a somewhat pale color. First, I decided to apply the effect of faded paint to the turret, then a bit to the hull, and after that I paid some attention to various small details, leaving some spots on the track guards and the tool mounted on them. Then I returned to the upper parts of the tank hull, as I believe that the wear and faded paint effect should be more pronounced here. This is because tank crews use this area to climb into the tank through the turret. Then I had just a little bit to do. I need to apply a few spots to the front and rear parts of the tank, and of course to the tracks. For now we can move on to the next stage. The next stage involves applying a wash in large quantities, as I want to test if it's possible to salvage a light colored tank by applying a lot of dark oil based wash. I applied the wash to all the areas where it could accumulate and create a pleasing shadow effect. As you can see, a lot of wash was applied to the tank turret. Then I proceed to apply the wash to the hull, avoiding the canvas and backs. I believe these details do not need a wash, as I tried to paint them in a way that leaves the shadow unpainted in the base color. All the wash was applied, and to speed up its drying, I once again used the hair dryer. Now a very long process of removing excess wash awaits me. For this I use a solvent for oil paints, which doesn't react with acrylic paints but removes oil paints perfectly. Using brushes of various sizes, I began to remove the excess wash from the tank turret. It is important to leave it only in the areas where shading is needed. In other places there should be no wash. Therefore, with careful brush strokes, I create the effect I need. Next, I'll speed up this process a bit since I'm doing the same action, just on different parts of the tank. And this doesn't essentially bring anything new, but watching how pleasant shadows emerge from a bunch of black spots and the tank turns into something beautiful is always interesting. The process of working with the wash took me several hours, and I'm generally satisfied with the result. But now it's time to work on chipping. For this, I added a bit of Dextan to the base color and began applying various chips and scratches all over the tank. As you can see, several spots and chips were applied to the tank's hull. Then some attention was given to various small details, the rear of the tank and of course the turret. When all the chips were applied, I moved on to applying the rust effect. As far as I know, rust in desert doesn't have a bright orange color. It tends to be closer to dark brown or even black. So I used this color when applying a rust and rusty scratches to this tank. I applied this effect all over the tank where chips were previously applied, as rust combined with chips creates an interesting effect that makes our model more intriguing. Once I finished with the hull and turret, I paid a bit of attention to the tank's chassis. There can be too much damage here, but some scratches and small chips on the tank's wheels can be used. Once that was done, it was time to paint various details of the tank. The first detail was the exhaust pipes. I painted them using my standard method, using 3 tones of rust and of course the dry brush method. For a 1/72 scale, I think this is more than enough, and it looks quite nice and natural. As you can see, I used the same color for the first layer that I used for the primer. This primer creates the perfect dark rusty color for my exhaust pipes. Then I used a few colors from ACM, medium rust and light rust, to finish off the exhaust pipe. In my opinion, it turned out great. Then I decided to paint various tools located on the tank. I chose to paint the handles of these tools with the same color I used for the exhaust pipes. I thought this color would contrast nicely with the overall color theme of the model. First, I applied a 3-layer of rust, then used light gray paint to create a metallic effect on the metallic parts of these tools. After that, I used the base color to restore the correct color to the fastening of this tool that attached them to the tank's hull. I used the same effect for the tools on the other part of the tank, but then I thought it would be nice to paint the axe handle in a more wooden color. So, over the already painted axe handle, I applied a heavily diluted base flash color. Same effect I applied to the shovel, located a bit further from the axe, and I think it turned out to be an excellent decision. For now, I just need to add a bit of rust to the shovel itself, and it was all set. After that, I used the dry brush method on the palm log. This is the initial version of painting this log, as I will repaint it almost completely later on. Actually, I just add some diluted base flash color to them. As you may have already noticed, I started painting the tarp, which turned out terribly. After all, green stuff is the best solution for simulating tarps on tanks. To save the situation somehow, I decided to use light gray paint and add some color to this tarp, leaving the shadows and some of the yellow base color, which imitates the effect of dirt and dust on the tarp. I applied the same dry brush method to paint several bugs located on the other side of the tank's hull. After this step, I began painting the rope holding all the supplies on the tank's hull. Because these ropes imitate towing cable, I used medium rust color. I think that in the conditions where these ropes are used, the metal should rust very quickly. Additionally, the rust color contrasts well with the base color of the model. Only after painting all the ropes did, I start painting the barrel. It was decided to paint the water barrel gray. Again, this is the best option to create contrast on our model. Additionally, gray is natural color for German barrels of that time. Of course, the barrel also gets some rust. The same effect was applied to the 4 jerry cans, placed nearby. After this, I just need to adjust the rust effect a bit. Using the base color, I removed the excess rust effect applied to the jerry cans. I also added some light gray metallic color to the towing cable, so they wouldn't look like overly rusted old towing cable, and had a bit of new look. Now let's move on to painting the tracks of this tank. First, I painted the tracks located on the front part of the tank, which are used as additional armor in a base rusty color. I used the same dark rusty color to paint the main tracks of the tank. After drying, I applied a lighter rusty paint using the dry brush method. This diversifies the appearance of the tracks and gives them a more natural look. Then an additional layer of rust was applied in the form of a dark wash. The final step for these tracks was applying silver paint to the all protruding parts, again using the dry brush method. I think nothing more is needed to the tracks of this tank. and in the desert, the tank tracks would look exactly like this. I could move on to the final step, refining the other elements and painting the road wheels of the tank in black. But before that, I decided to fix some details on the tank, because I didn't like how they looked. I also decided to diversify the rust color on the tank, and add the same dark wash that I used for the tank tracks. Then, off camera, because I was in a hurry, I added decals and painted the road wheels in black. Overall, there is nothing complicated in these steps, except for the decals. Unfortunately, I don't have decals used by Africa Corps, and drawing them by hand would mean ruining my model. I hope you will agree with me that leaving tank without any decals at all would be silly. All that's left is to apply a light dust effect using an airbrush. After that, our tank is ready for display. Overall, I can say that I am pleased with this model, considering that I completed the paint in just 6 hours. That's how much time I had to paint the model, as I will need to work for the rest of the days and won't have a single free minute. What I can say, power outages have taught me to optimize my time very well, and I hope that in the future I will be able to accomplish even more. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and that this model won't ruin our future diorama. That's all from me. This was Vlad from the No Quality channel, as always. Subscribe to the channel and like the video if you found it interesting. This is how you can thank me for the work I've done and show that you are interested in what I do. That's all for now. See you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye bye.